Hello everyone, my name is Emine. The aim of this video series is to help you improve your English listening skills. And in this video, I will talk about the basics. Now let's have a quick look at the content first. I will give a short introduction of the videos first, and then I will talk about the functions of listening. Then I will talk about the stages of listening process very briefly, and finally, I will give some reasons for having difficulties with listening. But let me first share with you the aims of these video series. In these videos, we will try to understand the skill itself and the problems related to it. We will identify some key points that will help us become better listeners. And finally, we will learn some tips and practical ways to improve our English listening skills. Now, I want you to think about your own experiences so far. Probably you've been studying English for months, even for years maybe, and you feel like your language skills are progressing well. You are getting better at grammar, and now you're familiar with most structures. Understanding what you're reading is not much of a problem for you, so you are kind of good at this too. And also, you are communicating well with people in both written and spoken forms, so these two are okay with you as well. But there is one skill that keeps bothering you probably, causing you trouble, making you feel stressed, worried, and even frustrated. That would be your English listening skills. And you find yourself constantly asking this question: how can I improve my English listening skills? Good news is that you no longer need to ask this to yourself, as we are here to help you. Starting from this video, you will have a better understanding of what listening and language learning is and how you can get better at it. Now, of all the skills, listening could be the most challenging one to develop for most language learners. But what does it mean to us? To understand it better, we are going to have a look at two functions of listening. The first one is listening for comprehension. This means that we listen to understand. And the second one is listening for acquisition. Here, we listen to improve our level. Let's have a look at them in detail. The first function, listening for comprehension, is in our nature. It is what we are programmed or created for. This happens in real life a lot. This function of listening is about understanding spoken discourse. If you don't know the meaning of discourse, we can simply say that it is any piece of language that has unity, meaning, and purpose, and that conveys a message. Language learners usually find understanding spoken discourse more difficult than understanding written discourse for some reasons. First of all, spoken discourse is instantaneous. It happens immediately. In real life, there is often no chance to listen to it again. We cannot pause people while they are talking, replay and listen to that part again, and continue our conversation. This doesn't happen. The second reason is that the speech rates vary from one person to another, or from a situation to another. Think about your teachers. In class, they speak slowly or at a normal rate, but when they're talking to their friends, or when they're talking to you during the break time, they might be speaking a little bit faster. Third, they are usually unplanned. This means that they reflect the processes of construction, like hesitations, gaps, reduced forms, fillers, repeats, and so on. they are usually not very well organized. Lastly, different accents and dialects make it difficult to understand spoken discourse. We hear people speaking with standard or non-standard English, or we hear native or non-native speakers with different accents and dialects, and they all make listening process very complicated and very difficult for us. On the other hand, the second function of listening, which is listening for acquisition, is about development. Listening provides input that triggers the further development of language proficiency. It provides a basis for vocabulary and grammar, and it reflects how proficient the learner is in the target language. So we listen for acquisition to improve our grammar and vocabulary. It also helps learners notice the features of the language, which are usually a few steps ahead of them, or in other words, which are not already in their linguistic repertoire. And in this way, it encourages learners to continue practicing and learning, which eventually leads them to reach a better proficiency level. So here, another aim is to expand or increase our linguistic repertoire and to move beyond our current level. If we are in A1 level, we want to move to A2 level, B1 level, by improving our vocabulary and grammar through listening. Both of these functions are very important in language learning, and classroom practices are organized around activities addressing these functions. But still, most language learners are struggling with listening. To understand why they are having these problems, we need to have a look at the stages of listening process. Listening, of course, starts with hearing sounds. Then we recognize sounds, which are parts of a word. Then we connect this word to its meaning. Of course, when we listen to someone or something, there isn't one single word. There are many words. So we need to remember what each word means. And also some words have several different meanings. So we should consider this as well. And understand the concept of all the words together. And finally, we should construct the message. And all of these should be done in seconds. We don't have minutes when we are listening to someone or watching TV, for example. Everything happens really fast. This is kind of tiring, right? But this is what happens when we listen. And by looking at this whole process, we can identify where the problems occur. First of all, your problems could be related to your vocabulary. Hearing a word for the first time or a word that you don't know well can cause problems in listening. When you read, it is easy to understand the meaning of an unknown word, but it is very difficult in listening as it requires more time and effort to guess its meaning. And when you are stuck with a word while listening and stop to think about its meaning, you might fall behind easily. While you are trying to remember the meaning of that word, 20, 30, or even 40 words can pass by, and you can lose track because it requires more time for you to recall, to remember the meaning of that word. And when you're trying to remember the meaning, that person is still talking, so you might lose track, you might get lost in that process. The second reason why you are having problems could be related to pronunciation. The sound system of English may not be familiar to you, as there may be sounds different from the ones in your native language. Therefore, you can find it difficult to understand the sounds and words. Also, the pronunciation of words in isolation and in a clause in a sentence when joined together are different. So it may be hard for you to identify and recognize the sounds and words. And lastly, you may not be familiar with different accents and dialects, and they could be the reasons why you're having problems when you listen to someone or something. The third reason that I want to talk about here is the concepts. When I say concepts, I mean the topic and the key points. You know most of the words, and you have almost no problems with the sounds or pronunciation, but you still feel like there's something wrong. You can't remember the details. So this is because processing the information and understanding the concepts are difficult for you as the speaker speaks fast, or the grammar is difficult for you, or you may not have the concentration to follow this conversation. Also, content could be getting in your way because you are not familiar with the topic. So in short, your knowledge of vocabulary, pronunciation, and topics could be the reasons why you are having problems with listening, and these are the areas that you should be working on. In the next videos, we will talk about them in detail and suggest you some practical, handy tips on them. That's all for now. If you have any questions or anything to share, please leave a comment for us, and do not forget to check out our next videos. Bye for now.